More to Marketing. Welcome to More to Marketing, the podcast that explores marketing, business, and product. I'm your host today, Susan Walsh, and we've got a very special guest today that's going to be talking about how the CPM, that's core prospecting messaging framework, can boost sales instantly, and why it's the only way to set a strong foundation for growth and scalability in business. And this guy has got heaps of examples that he can talk to as well to show how it works. I'd love to introduce Doug C. Brown. Doug is the CEO of CEO Sales Strategies and a leading expert in sales revenue and profit growth. With over 40 years of experience, which I don't believe looking at him that he's got 40 years, but we'll go with that. Doug has helped thousands of businesses from startups all the way through up until Fortune 500 companies dramatically and drastically increase their sales and profitability. He's worked with many, many major brands, all the way through from CBS, television, Procter & Gamble, all other ones. He's got heaps of examples to give, so I don't want to give them all away. And has generated over $600 million in sales through his career. His background, he has served in the US Army. And he has earned 3 college degrees and built his own successful business. He's known for delivering impressive results. And one of these examples I can give right now that he's lucky to share with me is with Tony Robinson's team. He helped to increase sales by 864%. And he's also been helping other clients achieve millions in revenue in just weeks. And that's by using all his tools that he's been learning over the years and curating and sharing. Doug is also an international best-selling author, the creator of the Top 1% Academy, and a sought-after speaker and mentor if he isn't already busy enough. And he loves to help organizations really build high-performing sales teams and achieve that real sustainable growth for the future. I would love to welcome Doug. Hey, Doug.
Hey, Susan. Thank you for having me on here. I'm very grateful.
No, I'm so happy to have you here. I think you've got such a wealth of knowledge to share, but why don't you start with your journey? How did you get where you are now?
Well, believe it or not, I started working when I was 3 years old.
Oh,
So, yeah, it wasn't forced child labor. It was my dad's company. Um, and, it's crazy to think that that was 60 years ago now. It's nuts. So yeah, in March I was 63.
I
So
don't
yeah, I
believe it.
don't look, yeah, I don't look it. I know I don't. And I have super great genetics on my side. And then I have a wonderful spouse who we're constantly working out and taking care of ourselves. So, but yeah, it was age 3. I was sweeping floors for 25 cents a week.
Oh,
And and I loved it because I got to hang out with all the adults and they would go like for lunch breaks, they'd go to, the local wherever, and sometimes to the local pub, like, or bar, we used to call them. And they'd have a beer and I'd sit up on the bar stool and I'd have my Coca-Cola or something like that. And uh, later on, I found out my mother wasn't too crazy about bringing her 3-year-old, along with all the guys. But yeah, and by the age of like 5.5 to 6, it was a family business. It was 14 people, and by the age of 5.5 to 6, they were teaching us how to sell. Really, I was out in front, writing orders um, and figuring things out. It was great because my grandmother, my grandfather, the whole family was there. And but I remember one day my little 6-year-old brain looked at something. We would sell electric machinery parts basically. When I remember we bought something for $10 and I sold it for 20. And I was like, wow, I do this like 8 times a day, like make $80, right?
mm.
And then I realized I was making 25 cents an hour at that point. I was like, I'm making $10 a week. And I just made $80 doing this, and my brain went, something's gotta compute here, right? And so that's where I started learning about selling and leverage and what you can do in your own business or of course, I didn't realize then we had overhead and we had employee costs and we had lights and buildings and all that stuff. But still, it was the foundation that started setting things forth. And now go fast forward in my life. I've either attempted, failed at, succeeded, or, broken even or wildly succeeded. It's actually, I just got another company that we just started. So now it's 37 companies. And
Amazing.
yeah, and so it's been a good ride.
Fantastic. And to have that learning hands on, not many people have those opportunities to actually have that 3 6 year old moment where you're
Mm.
part of it and they're bringing you along for the ride. I think that's beautiful because I don't feel a lot of families are doing that now because, well, business models have changed, of course. But I think that must have been such a fantastic experience for your grounding.
Oh, it was awesome. And what was really great is because I was in an entrepreneurial family, I used to be able to get out of school at 11 a.m. in the morning and go to work. So they had like work study, by the time I was 10, all my friends had to stay for school and I just got out and I went and then I went to work and my dad passed early and I never had the chance to ask him whether or not this was like by design or, did he just need low cost labor or what? Yeah, I don't know. Right. So, but I emulated, I did the same thing. I duplicated the same thing with my two daughters. They were in their first business event tax seminar at 5 years old. And they're sitting there and, what I realized is kids are sponges and they sponge it all up, whether or not they recognize it or not. But now they're in their 20s, mid 20s, and I'm actually starting to see the effects that
Mm,
they're capturing. They're like, you know what, I'm working for this salary or working for this, but man, if I was selling something or I was applying the principles of leverage, I could double, triple my income.
mm.
And that's really when I really started to get it, when I started actually doubling and triple my income. And I was like, okay, there's something here. Plus, it's fun. You get to talk to people and help them with problems and challenges and opportunities and goals. And to me, it's one of the most noble pursuits of business, that one can do, and that's selling something you really know helps people or you believe in.
Yeah. I think the thing that's really struck a chord for me there is I have twin boys and they're
Mhm.
about to turn 4. So I'm
Oh,
like,
wow.
I'm like, maybe I should let them in here more to see what mummy does when they're home.
Yeah.
So then they can be more of those sponge moments. So
Yeah.
thank you. You've made me think more about what to do with my own children at such an early age.
I mean, it definitely won't hurt them, right? I mean, and the thing is the more, because you're having business conversations with people and they're taking it in, even though we don't recognize it right away.
Mm,
I mean, it's like, maybe it does, maybe by the time they're 5, they start the next Amazon.com or something, right? But who knows? I did early on. Um, I wanted to make more money and, because money was fun back then, right? I mean, you could like, even for 25 cents, you could buy a lot of candy when you were 3 years
oh,
old, right? So,
yeah. I miss
because,
those
a
days.
handful of candy was like 5 cents. I mean, it was nothing. So, but then I was putting money in my bank account and I could buy Christmas gifts on my own and do all that stuff. So, uh, and I actually started building relationships with the banks when I was early on. And one of them actually, I don't know how they did this, but they gave me a credit line when I was 13. I don't even, it couldn't have been legal. I don't know, but I was always in the bank and I was just hanging out talking to the bankers. And one day they're like, let me give you a credit line. And I'm like, oh, what's that? And then they say, well, it was 2,000 US dollars at the
Oh,
time.
wow. That's huge back then too. Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. And the funny part is I actually used it to start a business. So I was just trying things to see what I could accomplish back then, right? And the first one I did without money was actually a paper route. And I convinced a couple of my brothers because I was too young to get the paper route. Yeah, I think you had to be like 14 or something, like 13,
Yeah.
14. And I was too young because my oldest brother's 9 years older than I am, and the next one's at 5 years older than I am. But they went out, and then I kind of found friends, and I said, "Hey, why don't we deliver these papers, and I'll pay you a percentage of the papers, and I'll keep a percentage." Right? So it just kind of started that way, and then I just started building different. And I always tried things. People thought I was crazy when I was little because I was just constantly trying something new in business. Um, and my dad was always really supportive of it, and even my mom, she was a nurse, but she was an Avon. I don't know,
Yes.
but she was making more in Avon than she was as a nurse.
Oh, yeah.
So I remember like when I was 3, 4, 5 years old, I'd go around with her and I'd help her put all the little lipsticks in the bag and we go to these party things with a bunch of ladies and this little kid me sitting there. And she would sell her wares of Avon and then she would collect the money and we figure out what the commissions were that she would keep. So it was a great education, and that's the thing. You don't have to send your kids to like, Cambridge, university to
Mm.
to to, to get this stuff, right? But yeah, so that's how it all started. And then I had lots of fun times. I always had money, which was great, in high school, prior to university,
We
I
had all
think
your
to call it
savings.
university.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had that always. I always had cars. I always, and I would do things like my buddy and I, Brian, at the time we went to our prom and we're like, I got to his house after the prom. I'm like, how'd it go? He goes, this was terrible. And I'm like, yeah, it was terrible. I didn't like it either. He goes, let's go do something fun. I'm like, what do you want to do? He's like, let's go to Canada. So I'm like, all right, great. We jumped in the car, we drove to Canada, and we didn't realize the drinking age was 18 and we were like 17, but they
Oh,
served us anyways.
yep.
And and didn't tell my parents, didn't tell anything. We stayed in a really nice hotel, because he was working too. And we hung out and had a heck of a great time, So money never solves all problems, but it
Mm,
does allow you to do fun things, and arrive
agree.
at your problems in style sometimes, but
Exactly.
yeah, I would highly recommend anybody listening to this if they're like, oh yeah, I think that makes sense. Just expose your kids
Mm.
to that, especially with what's going on in the world now, because inflation is crazy
Yeah.
at this point, right? And I know the Australian dollar, for example, is taking a big hit or
Yes.
has been for a long time compared to the American dollar and the Canadian dollar, the same thing. My wife's originally from Poland, so that's about 4 to 1, like their dollars, and our dollar, we got $1, they got four to theirs. But even in the United States, the inflation is outpacing people's ability to, on a standardized wage and standard raises, there's no way it's even close,
Same.
right?
Yeah. Unfortunately, that's the same thing. Yeah. And
And
that's where this education piece comes in so much to get them money mindset right.
yeah, yeah. In fact, I had made a decision, Susan, you don't know this, but we made even a couple nights ago, I was driving my wife and I was like, you know what? I can help almost anyone on this planet if they want to sell. I don't care if they have experience or not.
Mm.
I have taught engineers, I have taught accountants, I have taught math masters, like the most methodical people on the planet. I have taught them how to sell and how they've done really well selling. So I can take anybody who's selling today, and I can take anybody who has a sales team today, or I can take even people who want to learn how to sell, and I can show them clearly how to either earn a six-figure income in their first year or to add a six-figure income to their current income.
Amazing.
And we've just got it down. It's a process. It's not,
Yes.
it's a system. And the CPM is a process, right?
Mhm.
So it's it's predictable sales revenue, which equals predictable income.
Mm.
And so when you dial it in, it's just a matter of following it at that point. It's like any system that works. Uh, In fact, my wife has a master's in math. I taught her how to sell too. And in her first year in her business prior, long before we got married, she was actually my client first.
Oh,
Um,
was
yeah,
adorable.
it's a great, adorable love story. It really is. Um, but she made more in her first 4 months than she made the previous year in
Wow.
her businesses. And by the end of the first year, she made more in her first year in than she had made in the previous 3 years in her businesses.
Mm,
And it was all because we focused her on what to do, selling, leverage, the CPM concept,
yeah.
all of we have something called I affectionately call it 2X. It's like the 2X sales method because it's about how do you double your business if you want to, double your sales if you want to.
Yes.
And I know that's kind of like a overused phrase, but a lot of people were talking about 10X, like, oh, how do we 10X this? So,
But
and
that's
I'm
also a
like,
very extreme step too.
well, it's great. To me, and I know we might get a little hate mail here, but to me, that's kind of crazy. It's like, let's say we go to, I don't know, the gym, right? And we have, I don't know, 100 kilos on the bar, or 50 kilos on the bar. Are we going to expect somebody's going to be able to in a year go from 50 kilos to 500 kilos, on the bar? And it's not realistic, right?
Mm,
Now, could they go from 50 to 100? Yeah, right.
exactly.
And so my thought is let's get you to that next step, right? It might be 25% growth, 50% growth. With inflation kicking in at, I don't believe what they print. To me, it's 10 to 12%. So
Mm,
if you make $100,000 or whatever currency you're making today, and you don't make 112,000 or actually a little more because now it's
next.
taxable, right?
Yeah.
Then you're actually losing money. And so that's not hard to do in selling. I used to have a 10% rule every year that I would raise my income by 10%.
I love that. And I love that you've got these predictabilities and actions to do it all as well with your modeling.
Yes. Yeah. And the model, here's the thing, the model's not uh super complex, right? There are nuances within it.
Mm,
And if one knows what they are and how to apply, then it's great. It's a recipe, right? I mean, and so once they understand the recipe and the right proportions to put the recipe together,
mhm.
then you get that perfect cake every single time. And I mean, I had one gentleman, this is like I'd say my extreme example. He went from 140,000 a year in commissions to 2.1 million in
Oof.
commissions in his first year. And I was like, even I was like, wow, that's impressive, right? Because I helped him do it. But the reality is he always made that was a high year for him, but he always made over seven figures and sometimes multi seven figures every year for the 6 years after that I knew him. So it's like it's just a matter of understanding what to do in what proportion
Mm,
and the right way to do it. And it all begins, believe it or not, with a really truthful goal. And I don't mean subjective, I mean
mm.
objective. And then applying the right math. Yes, I said math, blah, right, to the process. And what a lot of people don't do, for example, is they don't calculate things like expense, refund,
Yes.
churn,
Marketing
right? All
costs, all of those
Yeah,
pieces.
of course, right? I mean, this is a marketing bug. I mean, there's cost to selling something, right? So let's say that cost, just make it easy, is 25%.
Mm.
And somebody's like, well, if I sell 100 things, I'll hit my goal, but they don't factor in that 25%.
Or inflation following on as well.
Well, that's a really good point. Yeah. Or inflation even in going on. So let's say inflation pushes that to 35%. Well, now we sell 100 things, but we really needed to sell 135. We're going to be short. It's going to be
Mm.
like I was explaining to my friend Sam one day, I said, Sam, imagine we take a hang glider and we jump off the mountainside. And before we jump off the mountainside, I look at you and I say, thanks for, joining me on the hang glider. We're probably going to be 25% short of our runway. And, do you want to get on the hang glider? You know,
Yep.
he's not going to get on the hang glider. He's going to be like, no, we're going to end up in the ocean, or we're going to end up hitting the mountainside, or we'll end up on the highway versus hitting the safe ground, right?
Yeah.
So we would never we would never do that, right? Most
Yep.
of us, but people do it all the time when it comes to business.
Yeah. And I think this is really good for us to start talking about one of your great examples that you've got, which is the CPM, because it's a fantastic framework. So that's core prospecting messaging. And it's
Yeah.
a framework that you've designed, which is absolutely fantastic to help the sales process. So people don't jump off the hang glider and hold on and hope for dear God. And then they realize it's 50% short.
Yeah, and CPM was made for two purposes. It was, how do we be more effective and how do we be more efficient?
Yeah.
And so, we got a truthful goal. And then it's like, okay, now we've got to start to sell.
Mm.
So, in marketing that you can put marketing out, spend a lot of money on marketing and not get a good return. Or you can spend a lot of money on marketing and get a great return. So what's the difference? It's that core, what we call core. Core is really, who is the ideal right fit buyer?
Yeah.
Are we actually marketing or prospecting, in many cases in sales, to that particular right fit buyer? That person who wants, needs, has the cash flow, has the ability to buy, will make the decision. All the parameters up front, understanding what that person wants, needs, fears, desires, all of that concept. And the crazy part is most people think they know it.
Mm. I like the word
And so
think.
they think they know it. Yeah. Actually, there's some interesting studies. Harvard University here in the United States, Wharton School of Business in the United States, very respected business schools. Some companies called Marketo and HubSpot, and other people have done similar research. And collectively, the research was put together, and they concluded that 97% of anyone selling, either in part or in full, is missing their ideal right fit buyer profile.
That's an insane number.
Yeah. So, I mean, hey, they're 3%, make it, right? But the rest. So let's say, I worked with Intuit, for example. This is a pretty good example. Intuit, Intuit over in Australia, I don't know.
They are. I know they have MailChimp as part of their suite.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that company, the QuickBooks, the big,
Yep.
a huge company, right?
They're
Um,
absolutely huge.
and they had a division where they used to sell checks. So they have the accounting software. They still sell checks, from what I understand. But they had $100 million division that was losing $10 million a year. And they couldn't figure out why. And so we looked at this and we interviewed, because you look at the metrics. That's another thing in the whole methodology we could talk about. We looked at the metrics and we're like, man, they're having a high bounce rate of people inquiring and not following through. They're talking to the sales team. The sales team is frustrated because they were getting commoditized, because they were like, hey, we're the big, dog here, and
Mhm.
buy your checks through us, right? But there were a proliferation of internet companies that were selling checks at that point for a much lower cost.
Yeah, it's not
So
much differentiation there, is there?
no, none. There was zero really, except price,
Yeah.
right? And convenience. Someone would be like, hey, we're, half the cost and we'll deliver the next day, that type of
Yeah.
thing. So they're having a very difficult time. So we started doing some research to figure out what we could do to bring the value proposition to to the game. And because the conversation used to go like, "Hey, I'm interested in buying checks. Okay, tell me what you want. Here's your price." Wow, that's expensive. Geez, I can get them for a third of that at wherever, right? Or for half. And so what we found, there was ample research out there by banks, large insurance companies, which showed that a super high percentage of small businesses were subjected to check fraud. Like 88% of companies at one point would run into check fraud. And the average was 50,000 plus in losses. So we then started testing that language, and the conversation went more like, hey, I'm interested in checks. That's great. Mr. Doug, are you aware that 88% of businesses at one point experienced check fraud? No, I didn't know that. Well, if you didn't know, the average company's, it's costing them $50,000 plus. Never mind all the heck and happiness that you go through having to untangle all your things that are going on with that, and the disruption to the business and loss of clients and all these things. Listen, we here at our company decided to solve that problem for people. So we have this special proprietary process which prevents check fraud from happening to you. And if for some reason some ultra savvy person figured this out, we actually have it backed in insurance, that the insurance will actually pay for anything that happens to you. So we'd like to propose that. And people would say, well, hey, that what happened to the hardware store down the street, from me or whatever. And they would say things like that. And then they go, well, how much are these checks? And it's, just a tiny, tiny bit more than what normal checks would be. And, long story short, without going through the whole script, they went from a $10 million loss to a $7 million gain in 1 year.
Amazing. And it makes complete sense too, because they actually
Yeah.
know what their differentiator is, and they could talk to the audience of why it was so much better than potential other ones out there, because they had safeguards and they were tapping into the emotional intelligence of it all.
Right. And when your core is clear, your messaging is super clear.
Exactly. And it's amazing how so many businesses miss that mark. They're just too focused on sell, 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 not let's help solve a problem, or let's
They're
change the
missing it in,
language.
yeah, it's either in full, and they're really, it's like, man, I just got 30 people I talked to. I haven't closed anything, right? That type of thing. Or in part. And the thing is, Susan, people miss it in their personal lives as well, right? So it's not any, like I have a friend, Dave, he's gonna kill me for saying this if he listens to it. So Dave, back in our youth, Dave came to me one night and he goes, like super good friend. He goes, Doug, there are no good women in the United States at all. None, zero.
I think
And I'm
almost
like,
every guy says that about their country, so he's fine.
okay, so Dave might be in Australia. And so I said to him, I said, Dave, there are like in the world type thing, there are, in the United States, there's like 330 million people. I don't know what percentage of women, but let's say half. And then let's say out of that, in your age bracket, let's say there's just 25%. So, we're talking like tens of millions of ladies. Out of tens of millions of ladies, there's not one good one in that, and and he goes, no, 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 no. He goes, well, maybe, but I can't find her. I said, different problem. Right.
Yeah.
And
So
I
true.
said to him, I said, Dave, well, tell me if you will, what are you looking for? And he said to me these words. He said, well, I want a gal who's, basically between 28 and like 40, 42. And I want her to, she's got to be highly church going, because I'm pretty, religious in that regard. She's got to have a master's degree. She has to be self-sufficient. She's got to like laughter and comedy, and she's got to love to dance. And obviously I want her to look like a, a superstar model type person, right? He's like, that's kind of a given. And I said, oh, okay, there's your criteria, right?
Yeah.
So there's the basis of what he's looking for. So now who's the core? And this is where it goes to prospecting, the P part of it, right? So I said to him, I said, okay, Dave, these are all the attributes you're looking for, right? And she's got to have a really good family because I want a family and she's got to want at least 2 kids.
Mhm.
So I said, I got it. You want a church going one, wants a family, has good family reputation, master's degree, super, girl next door. She's self-sufficient. So, and all these things, you want all that. And I said, yeah. I said, so well, Dave, tell me, where are you looking for these women? He goes, well, I'm going down to McKinsey's bar. I'm going down to Stoli bar, right? And I'm hanging out at the clubs. And I'm like, whoa, 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 Dave, hold on, buddy. You think a church going, dedicated, pure, woman is going to be hanging out at some skank bar? Like that's what he goes, I never thought about that. I go, I said, now maybe there's a small percentage of your market that actually will go to bars. They like to dance and they're just out dancing or whatever. And one of his criteria is she doesn't want to drink. That was the other criteria too, which I forgot to say, which
But
made
he was
this
going to the
even more
bar.
crazy. Right. Right. She doesn't drink alcohol. She can drink, whatever. But like when I was 3, I had a Coca-Cola. And so I'm like, Dave, my goodness. And then, his line was even worse. I won't even say what that was.
So we're going to work on that too. All right. Yep.
His messaging was just completely off, right? So I said to her, I said, Dave, what does she want? And he said, well, I think she wants me. I'm funny, I'm good looking, I'm happy. And this was his line, right? And I'm like, oh my goodness, we have do a total makeover here. So I said, let's go back to where she hangs out. Where do you think you're going to find her? And he said, honestly, I don't know. A church? I said, well, that's a start. I said, Dave, think about this. You want somebody with a master's degree. Why not? We live in Massachusetts. We have numerous universities from Harvard to MIT to
Yeah.
Boston. I mean, you name it, Tufts Medical. I mean, there are a lot of universities, and we have religious universities here, right?
There we go.
And
We're starting to
one
narrow
of
this
them,
down even better.
and he has one called Holy Cross right by his house, not too far. And so I said to him, I said, Dave, why don't we go to a church mixer? Not me and you go to the church mixer for people who have advanced degrees and other criteria, blah, blah, blah. And he said, all right, I'll give it a shot. He went to the first one. I go, how did it go? He goes, I met like 14 women. I'm like, 14 women that are in this criteria. He's like, yeah, they're all great. He's like, I'm going out with one of them. I said, well, did you change your cheesy line from, hey, I'm Dave and I'm good looking. And if you don't find me, repulsive, like we can laugh and we can have, and I'm interested in a family, or you're like trying to close the deal. And all I said to him is just walk up to him and say, hey, listen, I'm Dave. I find you attractive. If you find me attractive and not repulsive, to get her to laugh a little bit, then what I'd like to do is schedule some time, spend some time. Maybe we can go get a cup of coffee, right? At the Starbucks across the street or one of the local cafes. Just sit and talk and see if there's any mutual understanding, because I'm looking for somebody in my life which I can build a relationship with and eventually have a family. If that's you, then maybe we got something to talk about. And he was getting people saying, Dave, sit down here, let's talk, right? And
Oh,
and that type of thing. Well, anyways, I think it was the second or third date he went on. 4 years later, they were getting married,
oh, that's adorable too.
right? So the point being, and they had a great relationship all the way through the 4 years. And the only reason it took a couple of extra years is they were planning this big, huge wedding, and it took the venue they wanted in. And it's like, okay, kids, whatever you want to do.
They
But he
wanted to
was
really
missing,
celebrate.
he was missing his core. He was
Yes.
missing the right messaging and he was prospecting in the wrong place. And so, because he didn't know his core. So, prospecting is nothing more than pursuing the likelihood of something that is going to yield a direct response, if you will, from like direct response marketing, right? We're going out and we're stating what we do. We're asking questions to get out there and get knowledgeable. And long story short, we're basically just outreaching to the right core market with the right message. And so what we teach in the P part of the CPM is how do you do this and get 6 high performing methods that are going on in your first year, where high performing means we try them, we rate them, we actually literally say on a scale of A to F, just like we do in school.
Yep.
If they're an F, D, C, and you can't make them better and make them a B or an A, you get rid of them and you replace them with something else. And again, this is not complex stuff, right? But we're outbounding and outreaching to find the right methodology that's bringing business in. Then once we understand what those are, we then automate that process as much as possible. And the reason, and I call them HPAAs, or high performing automated activities, right? And the reason that we want to automate that process is because that frees up our time. It frees up our ability to be able to do more face-to-face communication.
Mm.
And I learned this while I was a corporate rep. And I had at one point 62 incoming calls a day coming into my line.
That's a
And all
lot.
I did was what I'm telling people to do.
Mm.
And a couple of them were like A plus plus.
Amazing.
So, for example, one of the A plus pluses was I made relationships with other people who had the similar core profile that I was looking for. And I would then help them sell more of their products and services through promoting our products and services. So what I would go and tell, like we sold telecommunications services, they sold like phone systems. And so I would say to them, hey, look, you know what? Let me look at your people's phone bills and what they're doing. And if I reduce their phone bills by average of a third, and they're paying $3,000 a month, now they're paying $2,000 a month. Your phone system, a new lease on your phone system is $600 a month. So they can get a brand new technology, plus they have a $400 a month profit. And so they would say, sure. And eventually I ended up with like 20 of them. And they're all throwing business coming in on a regular basis. Some were throwing 2, 3, 4 leads a week. Some were throwing a lead a day. Some would throw them every other week. It got to a point where I couldn't handle it anymore. So I had a team of 9 that was working with me, and we were equal peers. So then I would take the leads and I would say, hey, I got these qualified leads. Can you work them? And we'll do a commission split. Then I'd have another thing that was going on. Then I had the referral thing going on because we were really taking care of the clients. And then, that was getting automated through the process. So all of these like different things that we were doing, we tested and then we dialed in those 6 and 62 incoming calls a day coming into the phone. I actually literally had to hire an assistant to actually answer the phone all day long and then disperse the leads out to whoever. I became the number 1 rep in that company. There were like 335 reps, if I remember correctly.
Wow.
The CEO used to call me like once or twice a month just to see how I was doing. This was a big company. I got stock in the company. The company sold at $2 billion. And, good day for all of us, right? But I used the CPM to do this.
Mm.
And so there's one other part that, well, there's 2 or 3 other parts, but there's one other part that's really complementary to the CPM. And that is you got to run your business on metrics.
Yes. Well, very important
Okay?
for knowing numbers, isn't it?
Yes. We've got to know the metrics because the metrics tell a story. And when you look at the metrics consistently, it tells you where to at least look to adjust, or it tells you exactly where to look and or just do what to do, right? So I used to measure the metrics. And like the incoming lead thing, for example, I used to have we used to call them first, second, and third string, just like we would in like a football game or something like that, right?
Yep.
And my first stringers were throwing me a lead at least 3 times a week.
Hmm.
My second stringers were throwing me a lead 3 times every other week, right? And then my third stringers would again every three, it was just went on a
Once a
weekly
month or
basis.
whatever. Yeah.
And we had a fourth string, actually. They throw us a lead once a month,
Yep.
right? So that told me where to pay my attention to everybody, but how to pay more attention to other people. So it was a big company. We had sales contests. I would do things like I remember Christmas time, they had this auction at the end of the year auction. I had so many auction dollars. I bought everything, like literally almost everything they auctioned. People would be like, I'll bid $5,000. I'm like, I'll take it for 50,000 because I had so many points. Nobody could compete.
Yeah.
And what did I do with those gifts? What do you think I did? What do you think I did? A brand new TV, like a big, huge TV. What do you think I did with that?
Well, I think before you went to the auction, you probably sounded out what people may have liked from your from nurturing and talking, and then you
Yeah,
would have given it to the right person because you'd already built that relationship.
that's exactly what I was doing. Right. And so I walked in, to one of my first stringers and I said, hey guys, I never told them I was going to do this. I just walked in and I said, hey, we've got back then, this was big. It was like a
Oh, yeah.
55 or 65-inch TV or
Yeah.
whatever. It was huge. It weighed like 300 pounds, you know.
Jesus. Yeah.
And I had it in the back of a truck that I owned and I brought it up there and I said, hey guys, it's Christmas time. Um, Merry Christmas, right?
Oh,
And they're like, well, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm giving you a TV. And one of you probably, there was 3 owners. I'm like, one of you probably needs the TV. You guys can fight over it or do whatever you want to do, but right. And then by the way, here's a couple of bottles of champagne and whatever, right? And so, it was awesome because I started getting more work
mm,
because I paid attention to the metrics, right? So when we are looking at metrics, we should be looking at how many outbound attempts, how many outreach outs we're doing. How is our connection rate? How is that connection rate turning into positive responses or negative responses or whatever, or even neutral responses? How is that turning into appointments? How is that turning into closed sales? How is that turning into follow-up closed sales? How is that in getting involved in the sales expansion, whether we're upselling, cross-selling, downselling, gaining referrals, increasing the transactional value of the sale, and so on and so on and so on, right? Our re-engagement process. How many people are buying from us again and again? If we had 1 in 4 buying from us, now we can get 1 in 5 to buy from us again. We have no cost of acquisition except whatever the cost of goods are and the actual transaction cost. So our profit's extremely high, but from a sales perspective, isn't it nice to know you get a phone call and it's like, hey, listen, I'd like to buy something else from you, and you never even had to prompt it? This is how you add the income of predictability through the metrics. And follow-up is so important in this process. We don't forget that. And understanding how to have the conversation. So many people, Susan, try to add neuro-linguistic programming, persuasion tactics and techniques. You don't need any of that stuff,
mm.
right? It's a very simple process. And they want something for their reasons. Can you deliver that? And can you convey that value in the way they deem value to be conveyed? Really, that's it. And you can, and so we work through those. We work through the follow-up. Follow-up is a dropped ball. I mean, it's crazy how many people do not follow up at all.
Well, follow up
Oh,
equals also letting them know about other, like the cross selling and other opportunities as well. That's all part of the
yes,
follow up.
yes, yeah. I landed a little client here in the United States. It took me 2 years of follow up. Little, I don't know if you know the name of this or not, but it's a company called NASCAR here.
Oh, just that
And
little tiny company.
yeah, that tiny little car company.
Yeah.
Right. But it took me 2 years, but I follow up every month, every
Doesn't
single
take
month for
much
2 years.
time.
No, 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 no. And the more you can involve, like, see, here's the thing about follow-up. People think, well, geez, I'm being a pain. I might be, too much follow-up, right? They'll tell you if it's too much follow-up. But as long
Exactly.
as you're conveying something of value, you're not like, hey, I'm following up with you, so you buy my stuff,
Yep.
you know, that versus, like 1 year, in the United States, 4th of July, it's like our independence, holiday. So people go to fireworks. So what did I do? I used the power of the internet. I looked up, my top 100 people that I was looking to get into their door, if you will, and have a conversation. And I sent out, I looked up and I said, okay, well, this one's here in New Jersey. Where are their local fireworks? And I put together the 5 places and I sent them. I said, hi, I don't know if you take your kids to the fireworks. I don't know if you were going to be there, but if you're interested in fireworks this year, I know it's kind of a hassle to figure out where they are. So I had somebody pull this information for you. I did it actually. And, I hope you enjoy the fireworks. Sent out 100 of them, 12 or 13 and said, hey, can we talk?
And again, you can automate that as well.
You can automate all, especially now with AI and everything
Mm,
else, you can automate the whole thing. So that's what I'm talking about, high performing automated activities, right? We're
exactly.
reaching out. And so, it's so critical. Here's the nutty part. The average uh, person buying in a business situation, especially, expects a minimum of 5 touch points.
Mm,
Out of those 5 touch points, they expect 3 of them to be phone calls, statistically.
interesting. Very, very
And
interesting.
and the people coming up today are phone call adverse. Right? They're like, oh no, don't call. Like my daughters are in their 20s, and sometimes I hear them talking. They're like, so and so got upset because somebody called them without texting them first.
It's so true.
And I'm like, what? I'm older, so it just like blows my mind, right? But if you're trying to get a 50-year-old decision maker on, Apex buying person on the line, and you're trying to text them first and they don't know you, like it's just mind blowing, right? So I understand that when we sell to different generations, we got to deal on that level, but they expect 3 phone calls on average,
Mm.
right?
And I
So
and I guess that would also depend on how big the deal was as well. What the what
yeah.
the potential costings and timings and involvement would be.
Mhm.
That would significantly impact how many touch points would be needed.
Yeah, I mean, if they're buying a liter of gasoline or petrol, right, they're not expecting you to follow up 5 times. But if it is um, a relatively, it doesn't have to be a super huge purchase. It could be something that's kind of medium purchase. People are expecting you to follow up, and when you don't,
Mm,
you're breaking rapport. It's a common courtesy. Like the trades business, especially not just sales across the board. Half the people who talk to somebody or get a lead, they never follow up ever. 13% follow up 3 or more times.
well, that's even something that you can transition over to people job hunting and putting in an application.
Oh God, same thing.
There are so many times now that you don't even get an acknowledgement.
Right. Right. And it's just like you're on the other end going, hey, I matter. you know,
And it
if you
does
don't want
reflect
me.
what do you think then you're going to treat your team members like or your customers like if you're not even going to do a small reply like that. So it's detrimental for their brand image too.
So branding is what we're thinking of them when they're not around, right? In some
Exactly.
regards, a promise delivered, right? So this is, if anybody's listening to this, the way your phone is answered, whether they call back or not, you know, um, I have, I mean, I'll give a little hint. If you just follow up with 3 to 5 people a day from your past buying list, you'll get a 5 to 20% bump in your revenue.
And that's
because you're
just by
just
touch pointing.
re-engaging.
Yeah.
Yeah, just because you're re-engaging people that some of them are going to go, where the hell have you been? Right. Right.
I was just
Right.
thinking of you
So,
last week, but I didn't get a chance to call you. Thank you for calling me.
right. And so didn't get a chance to call you last week and they got busy. And now next week goes by and the week goes by and the week goes by. Right. And then all of a sudden you're no longer top of mind. So it's our job as the person who is building the relationship consistently to be top of mind. And top of mind, it's called TOMA, right? In the world of business, top of mind awareness. But if we're not top of mind, um, I got a situation going on right now with a super nice friend of mine I've known for a decade and a half. We've kind of like sort of drifted apart, not because I don't want the relationship, but because I've called and they're just not expressing the interest. Now, this person's a real estate agent, and I bought like probably 9 or 10 homes from this person over time and trust them. But they haven't been getting back to me in the last couple of years. And so it's sort of like starting to like fade off a little bit. And I know they're active because I see them posting on social media or whatever, right? And long story short, this home that I'm in now, we bought a couple of years ago as an investment property, and we were thinking about selling it at this point. And there has been a real estate agent every 3 months without fail who has called me from the day I bought the home.
Yep.
And all he says to me every single time is, hey, how's life going? Listen, I know you're not ready to sell, or you might be coming up sometime to ready to sell. I just want you to know I serve your neighborhood,
Mm-hmm.
specialize in your neighborhood,
Yep.
and I'll do an amazing job for you. And when you're ready, I want you to know I'm here and I'm going to stay in touch with you until that time comes.
Yep.
Well, now there's competition induced, introduced into the process because my brain is going, wait a minute, I had a great relationship. That's like, is this person really going to take good care of me when I sell this place? Or is
And
this new
also, are
guy?
they good in your area? Can they help you as much as this new person can? This new person
Exactly.
is
Yeah.
adding in some value.
Yes. All the differentiation that we would look for. And so now it's created this competition in my head where I'm like, because my relationship isn't as strong as it used to be, right? So this is what I want people to take out of this is that it's our job to keep the relationship strong. And you don't have to do this every single day. Every month and a half, I just send something out that says, hey, Susan, I was just thinking about you. Your name came to my mind. I was just wondering how your life is. That's it. And then you're like, oh, hey, Doug. Geez, I thought about you like, never, or I thought about you 6 weeks ago and I just didn't get back to you or whatever, right? But we re-engage the conversation. And if I can make this point clear. So I had a client, still client from time to time, but I did the work for them. They grew from 3.5 million to 6 million in a year. It was good growth for them. And then they were on their own for about 6 or 7, 8 months. And I happened to be going out to the West Coast. So I called them and we hadn't talked in literally like we talked like once every 3 months, right? So
Yeah.
it was like, and I called them and I said, hey, I'm going to be in your backyard. It's going to be, a couple months from now. I'm going to be in your backyard. I know I'm coming. Can I buy you lunch?
Mm.
And they said, sure, we'll go to lunch. We love you. So we go to lunch. I'm sitting there talking
Yeah.
to them and they're telling me, we're just talking about families and life and fun and what's local around here to go see or whatever. And then they said, well, how's your business going? And I said, this mine is going this way. I said, how's things going for you? And they said, well, it's great. We're sort of like doing this initiative and this initiative and that initiative. And I said to them, I said, guys,
It's a lot of
what I
initiatives.
recommend, what was that?
A lot of initiatives.
Yeah. They're very industrious people, right? When it came to their business. And they dealt with very high-end clientele, like fortune type clientele. And so I said to him, I said, guys, what I would do is I would create an agency program. And they said, well, what's that? I said, an independent program like I did in the telecommunications business. You have all of these people who are related throwing you leads, in doing this, but you got to set it up the right way or it will falter because it needs attention. And they said, well, geez, that's interesting. And I said, well, guys, if you ever want to do it, let me know. I'll tell you exactly how to do it. I won't charge you a penny and nothing, just gratis, right? And they said, okay, thanks. 2 days later, I get a call and they go, we decided to build an agency program. I said, oh, cool. Let's set up an hour and a half and I'll walk you through that. They said, no, we've decided something else. And I said, what? We're asking you if you'll help us build it.
Um,
And I said, okay. And they said, what would it cost?
mhm.
And I said, we're around a couple $100,000.
Yeah.
And they said, well, it's a little more than we wanted. I said, I could probably do it for around 180. They said, deal.
Mhm.
They paid me $180,000 for that lunch in 1 year.
Just for a quick catch up.
Right. So if anybody doesn't believe in
Mm.
follow-up, that story, I hope, captures their attention. And the last part of the system is conditioning our brain to think this way
Mm.
because so many people don't think this way. They think like, if I invited them out to lunch, I might be being pushy or I invite them out to lunch. What's the point? They're not doing business with me now. They're probably not interested in what I might be. I had no agenda, but I, I, I was on a sales training call with a sales consultant company. This lady showed up and she said these words. She goes, guys, you got to follow up. They said, well, her name was Janice. Hey, Janice, what do you mean? Listen, I called this guy about 7 months ago and I asked him, are you interested in this, that, and that? And he said, well, I am. But frankly, right now, I can't pay attention to it. Like I have so many things going on. But in 6 months, I'd be open to talking. And she said, I kind of shelved it and didn't really think he was that serious. And so, but then I remembered I was supposed to call him back and I called him and I said, hey, Ron, I'm sorry. I know you said 6 months. It's been 7 months, et cetera, et cetera. And she, he said, well, I appreciate you calling, Janice. And she goes, well, would you like to re-engage the conversation? He goes, I'm a little confused, Janice. She said, well, what do you mean? He goes like, I'm a client of your company. And she goes, well, what are you talking about? Well, I was called by Jerry
Yep. Someone else.
and about a 30 days ago, and I heard it was your company. I picked up the phone and it was Jerry. And I asked Jerry, does he know you? And he says, no, I don't. She goes, Jerry in New York? No, Jerry in Seattle, which is on the other side of the United States, right? And she goes, oh, I don't know him. Well, he didn't know you either. And so I figured you just left.
Mm.
So we inked a deal 2 weeks ago.
Oh.
And here's the craziest thing about this story. She said, well, what did you do? Did you do what I initially was proposing? He said, well, I did that plus this and this. And I signed a 5-year agreement. And she said to us, guys, here's the deal. My commission on that each year for 5 years was $500,000 per year.
Oh, she would have been kicking herself.
I lost $2.5 million. She said, you got to follow up. So, and so we've got to condition our minds to think in metrics, think about CPM, think about following up, think about all these things. And if we don't, then we kind of kick ourselves down the stairs, right?
Well, it's all
And
that
it
hard
hurts.
work of the initial conversations as well. And if you're not going to follow through,
Why
then
even bother?
exactly, exactly, you're not reaping all the work you had put in.
Well, it's like Dave, if he didn't go out on the date after he set the date, I mean, it would have been a lack of follow-up and then he would never would have met, Mrs. Wright.
Exactly. Amazing. No, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed our conversation and going through all of this. I have one question I ask everybody, and my
Yes.
question is, what brand, any brand in the world, best represents you and why? I'm curious to know yours.
Well, for our brand, it's like we're a steadfast bedrock of trust, right? That
Mhm.
yields you predictable sales revenue that thus yields you predictable income. That's the brand I want people to really embrace here. We do things like people call us and we call them back and then we have conversations. And, if they got an issue, it's like, I just had a gentleman the other day. He's like, he bought from us before and he needs something new. And he's like, I'm running a little light on money. And I'm like, your money's not needed here, right? You trusted us to get you to this level.
Mm-hmm.
Trust me to get you to this next level, if you will. And we'll delay any payment,
Yeah. You got
right?
that
And
relationship.
yeah, because to me, again, as we started out, I want to help people get that additional $100,000 a year.
Mm-hmm.
This gentleman's actually selling heating and air conditioning. And so, it's we want to be a bedrock of trust that actually creates predictable results, really, when it comes
Mm.
down to it. That's the brand. Why? That's a very interesting question. And I should have asked myself why I actually came up with that, originally. I think it's really my values. It's always been my values, like, and I credit my father to this, because I remember we were working on a machine one time and we were down in this pit, like literally like, I don't know, 12 feet or what is that, like 4 meters or
Oh
something,
yeah, yeah, no, you won't get me down there.
right? And we were in this enclosed pit and it had a bunch of pumps and industrial equipment in there. And we went to twist something, a wrench to twist it, and one of the pipes broke. And all of a sudden, water's going everywhere. And we're down in this pit, and we're like, oh my gosh, it's starting to fill up pretty quick. Like, get out of here, right? Da, 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 da. And I remember I was just a young guy, and I said to my dad, I said, Dad, listen, let's not even tell anybody about this. This is like, I'm like, it'll drain out. We'll deal with it later. And he looked at me and he said, Doug, that's no way to run your life. People rely upon you and you better be reliable.
Yes.
And because you are your word and what you do is more important than even what your word is. And people will remember that. So we're going to tell them exactly what happened. And we did. We went to the owner of the thing and the owner was like, oh yeah, that thing was like 15 years old. I'm surprised it didn't break when you got down. They already knew. But me being, I think I was like 13 and a half or 14, I was panicked. I was like, oh my God, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, do the right thing. I wrote a book called Win-Win Selling: Unlocking the Power of Profitability by Resolving Objections. I put win-win selling in there because we got to win, they got to win. Preferably, I
Yes.
should have made it win-win-win selling.
Yes.
And that way, someone else wins in the process. And that's doing the right thing.
And that is exactly how I look at it as well when I'm doing any partnership work. I call it a win-win-win because
Right.
you've got to make sure that everyone is getting some value. Otherwise, what's the point?
Well, there's too many situations, and why people don't play that way, Susan, is because they don't have enough prospecting going on,
Mm,
and so they get clingy to the leads. It's like,
yeah.
you know, and this is why people stay in relationships they that they shouldn't be in, especially in business relationship. Personal, they do the same thing. If you have a bad relationship with your current clients, you got to let them go and find new clients,
Yeah.
right? And so you do the same thing in the prospecting stage. We should be qualifying to qualify them out and based on mutual benefit than we are to try to say, let's sell this person, because I've learned there's no bad client, bad
Mm,
decisions up front, bad sales decisions. That's
yeah.
all.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Thank you so much. I'm just going to do a quick roundup of all the things that I took note of. So bear with me, Doug. Um,
Sure.
for me, I found this really, really interesting because I was interested to see what this model would look like. And I love the fact that it's about focusing more on how to improve the now and short term 1 month, 1 year now to double it, than looking at some excessive target of 10 timesing that probably wouldn't be as achievable in those time periods. So it's about realistic growth by doing really basic things that everyone should be doing and they're not doing.
Yeah.
And that's what I found really, really interesting. And also setting up that every year that you have a business, aim to always increase your own salary by 10% and how that will impact what your goals need to be. So you've got to start off with making sure that you have those truly objective business goals set up so that you can actually achieve something realistic. And this is by looking at math and applying that. And how we do this is by using effective and efficient systems. And the CPM is one way to do that. Core, identify who you're actually supposed to be talking to. Don't waste your time talking to others that are never going to get you down the pathway, but identify the best right fit. Prospecting is about making sure it is a fit, not just trying to hit a quota of, oh, I've spoken to 10 people today. It's not that at all. It's about the quality, because you want to be able to meet the needs and be able to make sure that they have what they need to be able to do this. It could be cash flow, getting rid of their fears, whatever it is. But whatever you're trying to sell and do with them, you need to make sure you're talking to the right people. And that's where the metrics and everything helps out in doing your research. Prospecting itself, you want to really, it's about pursuing the likelihood that will yield the direct response that all parties are wanting. So you need to yourself state what you're doing, ask questions of them. How can you solve problems for them? Being curious is a good thing. And over time, make sure you keep going back because you want to build those touch points. Now, it's about making sure that you're being authentic as well. And where you can with this prospecting, see what you can automate in it as well, whether it's reminders in your calendar to go back to them, or even the messages going out when it's been identified, and then you send out so many each day through a HubSpot or wherever it might be that you're using. That this here will help free up time so you can have more of those face-to-face or over the phone call conversations and nurture those leads. And that's where we have to pay attention to metrics. Metrics are so important. We pay attention to all the different ones that come through here. So you're going to have the natural ones, like some examples here that we heard were outbound, connection rates, if they're positive, negative, neutral. Make sure you write all those down. And there's also referrals, all of that. But I think the biggest piece I got out of this was the follow-up. You can't just sit back and just hope that they will call you. That's when someone else, we got some great examples, that's when someone else could come in and you might lose 2.5 million in potential commissions. Like, that's insane for just not following up. And it's good practice. It's making sure that you're seen as being reliable, that your brand is trustworthy. And we've heard metrics of 6 to 7 up to 10 times. Some of them need to be phone calls depending on what you're selling. But I've also heard up to 21 times depending on what you're doing as well. So depending on your industry, see what's working. And again, write it all down so you got your metrics, and then you'll be able to predict, because predictability is key as well, because then you'll be able to identify cohorts to go after with different things too. This is really all about, as Doug said, conditioning the brain to think like this. It's not a bad thing to reach out and not have anything. It's about reaching out and just saying, hey, how are you? And then if the conversation starts to flow, you might be asked to help to solve a problem. How is that, Doug?
You know, who needs AI when they got Susan Walsh? I mean, you just did better than any any AI program I've ever had, do something like this. So thank you. It was awesome. Um, Susan, can I make a couple of like free offers to people if they're interested in?
Yes, of course.
Okay. So if they go to our company website, which is CEO Sales Strategies, both plural, salesstrategies.com. There is a button there that they can register for a free training. It will take them through the metrics. It will take them through the 2X methodology. Give them an overview of the 2X methodology. And we run master classes. They're free. We do them, they're 90 minutes twice a month. We run one on the reliable, predictable revenue, including the CPM. And we also run one on follow-up specifically because we built and we train people on follow-up, and we built a SaaS product that specifically creates personalized, meaningful, and automated follow-up for people based on
Amazing.
metrics of what it's tracking, and we use AI in the process and different things. So the first one is they're both www.ceosalesstrategies.com. The predictable, reliable, measurable revenue one is ceosalesstrategies.com/PRM, predictable, reliable, measurable. The follow-up one is the same, ceosalesstrategies.com/just stop the leak. Because
Yep, got it.
follow-up is a huge leak in people's business. So we just say stop the leak. And they can come to free trainings, and of course we make an offer on the back end, but it's not a lot of investment, because we're looking and we're literally using this to build a relationship and give huge value on that process. So I appreciate you having me on here. And if people want to reach out directly, there's Doug@ceosalesstrategies.com.
And I'll make sure all of that's in the show notes as well, everyone. So if you didn't get that down because you're out and about, they'll be on the show notes. So you can go direct to Doug C. Brown and learn more and be able to get his help to be able to do that 2x. And let's see how amazing you can grow your businesses and get the right strategies in place. Any other final words, Doug?
I've had a blast here. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Appreciate you being here and inviting me and allowing me to get the word and the message out, if you will. And again, I'm very grateful. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Everyone else, don't forget to add more to marketing to your playlist so you don't miss out on future fabulous guests. More to marketing.